Hello everyone. Welcome to Confessions Jury, where people put themselves on the spot, waiting for your judgment. Sit comfortably and listen carefully, as you're about to hear today's cases. You hold the hammer and you apply the law. Let us have your verdict down in the comments section. As always, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Let's head on to our first case. Case 1. Am I the bad person for telling my ex-husband that our kids are justified in feeling like they don't have a father? I'm 33 and have 2 kids, 12 and 8. I divorced their dad when I discovered he was cheating on me with a mom from our younger son's school group. Despite that betrayal, I agreed to shared custody because I wanted my kids to grow up with their father in their lives. However, since the divorce, he's only been around when he's picking them up for visits. He often goes out with his stepchildren but rarely includes our kids, claiming those outings are spur of the moment and can't always include them. Eventually, I stopped pushing, but I've always thought it was unfair that he keeps his distance from our children's lives. Recently, I decided to upgrade my older son's computer, and he asked if we could give his old one to his cousin, my brother's son. My brother has been a huge support for my kids. He's always available to take them to their school events when I can't and often takes them out to the park or for trips when I'm busy. My ex, on the other hand, is rarely available for them. Anytime I ask him to help with an activity, he has an excuse: he's out of town or swamped with work. Ironically, though, whenever his stepkids need something, he's there. Once, he even argued with the stepkid's father at a school event, insisting he had the right to be there. When my ex found out I gave the computer to my nephew, he got upset. He complained that if I had money to spare on a gift like that, I should have forgiven 2 months of child support he'd missed, since his finances were tight with a new baby. He added that if I could give away a computer, I should have gifted it to either his kids or his stepkids, who share just one computer among the 3 of them. I told him my finances were none of his business and that I owed nothing to his stepchildren. Then his wife jumped into the conversation, accusing me of spoiling my son by giving him a new computer and of being petty for letting my son bring it to their house, claiming it was just to show off in front of his step-siblings. I told her she had no right to speak to me that way or question my decisions. I added that I allow my kids to see their father so they can grow up with him in their lives, not so she can interfere with how I parent. My ex was offended, but I told him this whole situation could have been avoided if his wife hadn't inserted herself where she doesn't belong. After that, things seemed to calm down until last week. I went to pick up the kids, and my ex was visibly upset. He explained that he tried reading a bedtime story to our youngest. At home, he still likes to be read to before bed, usually by me, his brother, or my brother, and when none of us are around, he listens to audiobooks. Apparently, my ex wanted to make an effort to connect, so he offered to read to him, but our son turned him down, saying he didn't need him for that because he could do it himself. My ex stayed to listen as he searched for a story for 8-year-olds without a dad on his tablet, and it hit him hard. The next day, my ex offered to take our older son to basketball practice, but he replied that he'd be going with his dad. He quickly corrected himself and said uncle. That made my ex even angrier, and when I came to pick up the kids, he confronted me about it. I told him that if our kids feel like they don't have a father, he is only himself to blame. He tried to shift the blame onto me, saying I was the one pushing him away from his role. I told him it's up to him to show up for his kids, not something I can do for him. I reminded him he was the one who broke our family, and he's chosen to be more involved with his stepkids than with his own children. I told him not to kid himself. The kids are growing up, and they're starting to see the reality of who he is as a father. If he keeps this up, he can't expect much from them in the future. After that exchange, his mom called me. While she's always been polite to me, I felt the need to say that I would have appreciated this same concern from her when she supported her son's affair, knowing her grandchildren were losing their father in the process. She hung up, and we haven't spoken since. My brother advised me that I had every right to express how I feel, but he suggested that maybe this discussion shouldn't have happened in front of the kids. Later, my ex texted me saying that if I weren't so difficult, he'd spend more time with them. I told him his duty as a father doesn't depend on whether I'm easy or not, and he knows I've never prevented him from seeing the kids. The truth is, when he has to choose, he prefers outings with his stepkids over his own children, and that's something only he can change. What do you guys think? Lay down your ruling in the comments section and let's move on to our next story. Case 2. Am I the bad person for kicking out the real estate lawyer that my fiance brought to my house? I have been with my fiance Scott for 5 years. I've lost my mom, who was my remaining parent, 7 months ago. She left me her house and I became the official owner 3 months ago. This is when Scott proposed to me and we got engaged, although he wanted to wait before we got engaged, but he said that me owning a house now made him feel like we were ready to be married. Few days ago, he suggested that I add his name onto the title of the house, and he has been persistent about it. He explained that this step was necessary to ensure balance in our relationship and marriage, even though I never made him feel like he's inferior or something. Oh, and I make more money than him, by the way, so I don't get how adding his name onto the house title would change anything. But since he insisted, and since we've been together for a long time and we're engaged now, I decided to do it, but only after we get married. He disagreed and insisted we get it done before we get married. After a lot of back and forth on this, I told him to drop it and wait till after marriage. Well, yesterday, I was surprised to see that he had brought a real estate lawyer to the house, and not only that, he said he has arranged for the legal process to start now. I was completely shocked because I never agreed to hire a lawyer, let alone bring him to the house. I immediately asked the lawyer to leave. He tried to speak, but I told him he needed to leave. Scott remained quiet till the lawyer left. Then he gave me a look and told me that what I did was selfish and disrespectful, not to the lawyer, but to him and what we agreed on. I told him his pushing made reconsider the whole thing now, and he looked shocked and hurt, then stormed out. We continued fighting over the phone, and he didn't stop talking about how stubborn and selfish I have been lately. He said he was trying his best to provide a stable living situation for us before we get married, but I was being uncooperative. After that, he completely ignored my calls. Was I in the wrong for what I did? What do you guys think of this one? Let us know in the comments section, and let's move on to our next story. Case 3. Am I the bad person for refusing to share my parents' inheritance with my estranged brother? My 29F parents passed away unexpectedly last year, and as painful as it was to process, things got even more complicated when I found out about their will. My brother, 27M, and I were raised together, but he cut ties with our family when he turned 18, right after a massive argument with my dad. He's always had a rebellious streak and thought our family was holding him back. After leaving, he never made any effort to reconnect, not even when our mom was hospitalized a few years ago. I tried reaching out multiple times, but he ignored my calls and texts. When my parents passed, I was shocked to find out they had left everything to me. They made it clear in the will that my brother would receive nothing because, in their words, he had chosen a different path. It broke my heart to see that they felt so estranged from him, but I understood why they made that choice. My parents worked hard for what they had, and they were deeply hurt by his decision to walk away and stay gone. A few months after their passing, my brother showed up out of the blue, acting like nothing had happened. He apologized for being distant and said he wanted to start fresh as family. At first, I was cautiously optimistic maybe he genuinely changed. But then he brought up the inheritance. He seemed surprised that he wasn't included in the will and said that regardless of what happened in the past, he was still entitled to half of what our parents left. I was taken aback. I told him the will was clear, and our parents had made their decision based on how he treated them. He got angry, accusing me of taking advantage of the situation and calling me greedy. He said it was unfair for me to keep it all when I know he's been struggling financially. It felt manipulative, like he was only interested in reconnecting because of the money. After a heated argument, I told him I wasn't willing to share the inheritance. I reminded him that he'd had years to reach out, and if he really cared about family, he wouldn't have waited until there was money involved to show up. He argued that I'm punishing him for past mistakes and that our parents had no right to exclude him. Now he's telling other family members that I'm being selfish and trying to paint me as the bad sibling. Some relatives have reached out, saying I should do the right thing and share, arguing that it's what our parents would have wanted. Part of me feels guilty, like maybe I'm letting my resentment toward him cloud my judgment. But I also feel like he made his choices, and he doesn't get to swoop in now that there's something to gain. I don't know if I'm being too harsh, though, or if I'm just respecting my parents' wishes. Am I the bad person? You've sat down, you've listened. Now, it's time to state your ruling. What is it gonna be? Let us have it down in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more cases like these. In life, we may run, but we can never hide from true justice. Stay safe, everyone.